This morning I was asked if I had a BrewFather, Robobrew or Brewzilla profile for the 35 litre. Now, I have mucked around a little bit. I haven't been quite happy and got it perfect. So today, since BrewFather 2 is out, we're going to have a quick look. I've set up a different account to my personal account. So because I've mucked around with the profiles on my personal account, so I've started a new account just so we can have a look at what you get out of the box and how we'll change it to work for us. So I have put a few of my sample recipes in just for testing, but we'll go into these profiles and have a look. These are ones I was mucking around with just earlier. This is the usual one, 25 litre batch size it says. For 35, where, you know, anyone in Australia knows when you brew, we don't get 25 litres out. Maybe if you did a half-hour boil or something. Yeah, we can't. So I'm just going to make a copy of this profile. I'm pressing copy, and we'll close it. We'll go back into the profiles, and there's the copy there. We'll use that one to play around with. And we may as well get rid of Robobrew these days, really. Doesn't really matter, does it? And I'll go... Alright, we'll leave the boil time at 60 minutes. There's no way we're going to get 25 litres out. So I'm going to drop that down to 23, and you're pushing it to get 23 without tipping it up at the end anyway, but we'll say 23. Now, I know for 23 litres myself, there's no way I'll get 23 litres out with a 28 litre pre-boil. Not without tipping it up again at the end and getting trube and junk. So what I'll do here is I'll up. We'll start with that, with the trube loss, and to 3. We'll see how we go there. Batch volume 23, once we start with a boil of 30 litres. Now, boil off 3, I think we actually get a little bit more. I know mine's set in Beersmith to a little bit more than 3. But we'll leave it there. We'll just see how we go with the numbers. We'll leave all that. The brew house efficiency is at 69. We'll leave it there for now. We might drop that later. They do calculate it different programs. So like you can't compare this directly to Beersmith because they might calculate it differently. My brew house efficiency in Beersmith is usually 72 to 76. My mash efficiency is usually around 80%, plus or minus. But it's all, yeah, they're calculated differently. We come down to the hop utilisation. I will leave it at 100%. I do not do 80 degree hop stands. I just think they're a waste of time. But that's just personal choice. I do hop stands, so I'll just leave 98 there as a random sort of number because I throw them in at flame out and then, you know, it might cool down to 97, 96 by the end of, say, 10 minutes. We'll put in a 10-minute here just because this will be a chilled batch, not a no-chill. If this was no-chill, I'd put something like 300 minutes there because it stays hot for a very long time. It's all a bit of a guess with a no-chill. You never really know what you're going to get IBU-wise. But that's another discussion for another day. Altitude adjustment I do not have to do because I'm only about, I'd be lucky to be 3 or 4 meters above water and nothing's going to change there. So I'll just leave that off for me. You can adjust that if you live on a hill or something. Boil temperature, 100 degrees, yep. Now, this... I think in Beersmith it's 0.9 there, not 0.8. But we'll see how we go with numbers and water levels. I sort of know how much we need for a batch because I've done that many brews. I've got at least 100, I think, in each one of the Robobrew 1, 2 or 3s spread across them. There's easy 100 brews there. Okay, water grain ratio. This is way too low. If you had 4 kilo grain and used 12 litres of water, that just wouldn't work. I'm not sure. We'll have a look further down. I'm not sure if BrewFather adds this mash tun dead space onto it or not. Water to grain ratio would be 3 litres to 4 kilo of grain, what I'm talking about at the moment. That's 12 litres. And that's not enough in the Robobrew. But if BrewFather adds this on, the mash tun dead space, 12 and that's nearly 7, so 19 litres, that would be fine. It'd actually nearly be, you could go probably 17 litres or something with 4 kilos or 18 litres. But that's close enough. But we'll see what happens when we get there. Mash, sparge, water calculation method, we're just going to leave that. No, I don't do no sparge. I don't do that very often. Sparge, water, reminder, no, I'm not going to do that. Include grain volume in mash limits. I'm not going to do that. I know that and here's the mash limit waters, the level of the water in your mash limit. If that was on, grain and water, your max would be about 30. That's a combination of the water and the grain together. I'm turning that off. I'm going to put the max water for mashing probably 20. If you're doing a bigger brew, you might be able to squeeze 21 in. But I like to start at 20 for the big brews. And the minimum I'd probably use in a brew is 17 litres for mash-in strike water. I wouldn't use less than that. So there's my minimum. When it works it all out, does the equations, how much water you should have to how much grain you're using. It won't use less than 17 for mash-in, and it won't use more than 20. You might push that to 21 sometimes. Sparge water limit, I'm not going to touch. Top up, boil. No, I'm not. Well, we're not topping up in the boil. HLT water limit, I'm not going to bother with that either. If you've got a very small HLT or something, you might play with that. Strike water temperature, calculate strike water temperature is okay. This is where you'd change it in winter or summer. Like, in winter your room temperature might be 10 degrees or 5 degrees. And your grain might be the same. So, around this time of year for Australia at least, I'll probably leave that at 20. It's probably about right. Mash tun heat capacity, I'm not going to play with just yet. Because, especially if you read here, if mash tun is preheated, set capacity to 1, where the Robobrews and the Brewzillas and the Grainfathers and things like that, they all will be preheated because you preheat it before you put your grain in. You should always preheat your mash tun anyway. Sparge temperature, this is somewhere for me between 76 and 80 degrees. Simply because sometimes I know the transfer from the HLT, if I set it to 80, my sparge water, by the time it gets to the HLT, it's usually dropped a couple of degrees. So 78 or 76, sparge temperature. It's fine. Right, that is what I've got so far. And we'll click save. This is just a guess. We don't know if this is going to work. And there's our profile we just made. Ignore these down here. We might still use those, but that's what I was playing with this morning. And I just had a brainstorm over a cup of coffee and thought I'd have another go. And we'll try this one. And so if this one works, this is the video you'll see. If this one doesn't work, you would have seen the videos from when I've already made these this morning. So we'll shoot across to recipes. And here we go here, Pilsner Unreal. This is one of the ones I did this morning and was just testing numbers and things. And we'll swap it over to the one we just made, which was this one here. And we'll see. We don't scale the recipe because that'll throw our numbers off. And see, we've gone down there a fair bit. But the brew house efficiency is set pretty low. So let's go into the recipe and we'll bump up the efficiency a little bit. So it is 69. That's fairly low for a brew house. I'd normally expect somewhere between 72 and 76. But brewhouse efficiency, remember, relies a lot on your fermenters and things, because the more you lose out of the bottom of a fermenter, the more your efficiency goes down. So if you have a fermenter where you don't lose anything, but you always lose some to trub, you know, your efficiency will be way up there, and it's got nothing to do with your grain. Your lower efficiency might be to do with losses through hoses and transfers and secondaries and things like that. No. That is closer. We'll go into my beersmith here, into the cloud, and where's my, which one is it, Pilsner Unreal? It was this one, I think. This one's the one's locked down, so it means I brewed it. My estimated original was 47, but I actually got 49. This is estimating 47 too. So, you know, maybe that's not too bad. Now we've got it worked out for the Pilsner, we will chuck it in the test IPA. And make sure it's loaded in, save. Right, so we've got the test IPA loaded in with the equipment profile we are mucking around with right now. I got an actual of 59 on the day. It is saying 1.060. So this is saying just 1 point up to what I got. That's fine. That's fine. That can happen with bigger beers. This is bigger, nearly 6 kilo grain. Most of my brews are around 5 kilo. It can happen that you can lose a point. Maybe it was just a bad day. Now, one thing I didn't check in the Pilsner, which I probably should have, was the water amounts used. 20 litres is fine for mashing, that's what I would expect. But I'd expect a little bit more sparge water there. I probably want close to 15.5 litres for my sparge. I just know from brewing it so often. So I need probably, what's that? 700 mils of water more. Nearly a litre. Now, I think I never fixed up in that profile was the, and I'm just doing it in the recipe now. You must remember that this isn't changing the profile for the whole program. It's just changing it in the recipe at the moment. But once we know what works, we can change it in the major profile. So we'll put that grain absorption to 0.9. I think I mentioned that earlier. But it might have to be that. If we look, you know, that doesn't change your numbers or anything. But yeah, it gives me that little bit more sparge water to near 15.5 litres, which is what I think I would need. You can adjust this if you find out you've got too much sparge water or too little sparge water. You can adjust it. Okay, so I think that's the water. We're all looking pretty good. Now I've got this profile working to my liking. Saved here, but it's only saved in the recipe. If I open up, even though the profile's got the same name, if I open it up here, it's going to be the old profile. The 69% efficiency, so I can change that to 72. And I can change that to 9. Grain absorption, save. Now it's saved permanently for that profile that I load in. It won't change the other recipes I've got where this profile is already used, but any future recipes will load in the numbers I want. Now there's another way to save it. If you've mucked around a lot and you can't remember exactly what you've changed, I can remember what I'd changed then, but if you can't, you can open up your profile here, and this is the one you've changed all the numbers and you've got it all right, but you can't sort of save it. Saving there doesn't save it. Save it only for this recipe. So what you can do though is press copy. I might go over this a couple of times. If you close that, then you go into your profiles, equipment, you'll have the copy there, and the copy will be right. For your older one would have been wrong and still at the old settings. So what you might do then, would be the old one that hasn't been updated. So you might go in there and you might delete that one. And then you can go into the new one and get rid of that copy. Save. There you go. Now, it's taken it off from being, because I deleted the one that was your default profile. So I can open it up again, make it the default. Save. Now I've got the star next to it. I can close it. And whenever I make a new recipe, close that recipe. Whenever I make a new recipe, it loads in as the default. Now, how am I going to get this to people? Well, I don't know how, if there's a share thing on here. I know I can share a recipe online. I can't share from this account because this is a sort of just a fake account I've made up to show you how I'm doing it. Because you have to pay money to share and anyway. What I will do though is show you how I can get this into my, and how you could do it as well. So I can export. I don't know if I can export the profile by itself, but I can export a recipe. So I can open up a recipe and I can go export, and I can press BREWFATHER recipe JSON, and I can save it there. I'm going to rename it just so it stands out from those other two I've saved. Test, export. Okay, now I've exported that. What I will do is log out of here. I've signed into my actual account. I can import up here, import the JSON file, test export, open. There it is. You can see here, it's a little bit hard to see, isn't it? But if you press edit or something, you can see here that, whoops, that's still the copy in there. But that's okay. That's still I know that's the same profile. When I renamed it in the other program, I should have reloaded it into this, but I know it's exactly the same. I can rename this here if I want. I'll just save it there. But you'll notice, see, when I save that there, you would think that would save into your profile equipment or equipment profiles, but it doesn't. These are different ones. That's one I was playing with this morning. It doesn't. That's always threw me off a little bit. You'd think it would. But I can easily go back to the recipes where it is here, and you'll see that it is still saved up there. But what you do is you press this copy down here. Copied successfully. Close that. We can close the recipe. We can go in to my profiles, equipment, and there's the copy there. Now we can again go in, I know I've changed the names a few times, we can get rid of that and just save it like that. And then there it is. And as before, we can open it up again and we can press set as default, save, and now that profile is default. If you brew with it, if you brew with this profile and you get a couple of numbers up or down consistently, then you can muck around with that efficiency a little bit. If your volumes are different, you can muck around with the volumes that I showed you earlier. But if anything's suggesting that you're going to get 23 litres and you've got less than 30 here, you're really pushing your luck. And you're going to have to empty out all the trube at the bottom into your fermenter. Some people don't mind that, some people do. If you're wondering where the black profile from the BREWFATHER came along, it is one of the new features in your settings. You can change it from light to dark. You can change the grain color to Lovibond now. You can, which is handy sometimes because sometimes you're mucking around and the charts you're reading are in Lovibond and you're trying to convert between EBC and Lovibond and volume liters. I've changed carbonation where you can change it to grams per litre. CO2 volumes or grams per litre. They've added in, one of these wasn't here before, was it the Platos? Added in Platos. So actually I'll turn the tilt off for now. I'll turn it on again later. That was for another brew, and it'll all change now. I've made up the Raspberry Pi device. Well, there you go. Hopefully you can see how I did all that. Okay, I hope that helps people. I did sort of go through it fast. Maybe on the Patreon I'll upload the muck around I had with the first two. If you're on my Patreon, you might want to have a look at it. The longer version of me mucking around with the profiles before I thought, I'd do it this way. But, you know, that's up to you. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share, do all that sort of thing if you like this video, if it helped you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I do have a BrewFather affiliate link. I'll leave that below. It doesn't cost you any more. Helps out the channel. Smidge. And thanks to BrewFather. They did supply me with an account so I could use it and test it and tell you guys what I think. Of course, that doesn't change the way I'm telling you. I haven't fallen in love with it yet, but I think it's getting better every day. There's a couple of things I need to learn how to tweak properly. So if you have any tips for me, let me know. If I've done anything wrong that you think, let me know. If you have the perfect profile for the Robobrew or the Brewzilla or the Guten, and in different countries too, because they operate differently, let me know, please. I'll totally give you credit. I might do a video. If you don't want a video, that's okay. I'll just whack it in links on the Homebrew Network or Cellar Dwellers, just to help people out, because I'm always getting asked for profiles for the BrewFather, and the ones supplied aren't quite right for Australia that I've seen. I think they might be made for the US with, you know, 120 volts, less boil off. I'm not sure, but let's get on top of it so everyone can start using it correctly. All right, cheers. Just a little bit extra on the end. I was going to show you how the tilt connects. We'll do that for a full recipe later, but when I was testing the tilt, the first batch for the lager, I did hook it up to BrewFather. Now, I hooked it up to a different recipe because I never had the proper recipe. This might be a bit confusing. For the decoction lager in BrewFather, I hadn't put it in yet. So I hooked it up to a Czech Pale Lager, so that's why if you have a look here, you'll see Czech Pale Lager up here, but it isn't really that brew. And as you can see here, I wish sometimes those things would stop popping up. That's where the tilt mucked up at the start and I had to take it out, and I recalibrated and I put it back in and all that muck around. And then you can see the gravity going down, 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 and at the bottom, the temperature going up, up, up as I put it into diacetyl rest, or just to bump it up at the end. And then we crash chilled here, and we were done. Now this is all when I probably took it out and washed it and things. I hadn't turned it off. But we actually finish about there somewhere. Not there somewhere, I should say. I just thought I'd show you that.